Yeah, good afternoon, guys. I hope all of you are doing pretty well there. So I have a actually interesting question here. This is question was put up by Mr. Brian, and he has asked me about this that he's working actually with the PowerPoint, and he has 50 slides. Let me read out his question actually. Insert new blank slide. This is the topic between every end slide. Suppose I have 50 slides in a PowerPoint. I want to create a macro that opens the existing PowerPoint. Okay. So how would I insert a new blank slide in front of the first slide and then a new blank slide after every 5 slides? So the thing is, you have 50 slides here in your PowerPoint. Okay. And all those slides are already created. Now, what you want to do is after every fifth slide, which means sixth and then 11th and then 16th, and then 21st, you need to create a new slide, okay, after every fifth slide. So basically, I will teach you that one is that how you can open the existing PowerPoint, right? Now, already this is discussed in the PowerPoint connectivity course, but still I'm explaining this. And then how to check that if this is the fifth slide, if this is the 10th slide, 15th slide, 20th slide, because we have to go and insert the slides, you know, after every fifth instance of that particular slide. And yes, after doing that, we need to insert first slide also. Before the first slide, there has to be a new slide also, apart from that. So obviously, if you have 50 slides, that means overall, after every fifth instance, there are 10 instances where I'm going to actually find out you know, uh, the slides, right? Like as I said, that one is 5 and then 10 and then 15 and then 20 and then 25 and then 30 and so on, right? So we will have 10 slides added over there. 50 plus 10 makes it 60. And then the first slide, again, one more slide has to be entered, which is supposed to be the first slide. This is very interesting. Okay. So guys, as usual, I have created the reference over here, the PowerPoint 16.0 library. You know that this is a early binding method. I always say that if you have to make a code compatible, if it has to work with other applications, the other versions also like 15.0, 14.0, or maybe higher versions, right? Then you can change the early binding to the late binding, and that I will do it for you later. But in the late binding, the classes, I can't see the classes. Dot operator doesn't work. So I prefer this way. Okay, that is the first thing. Go back in your this tools and the reference. Just activate this Microsoft PowerPoint library. Whatever the number you have, that's okay. Doesn't matter. Okay. So we're gonna start this. So project Mr. Brian. Okay. Okay. He actually we have been communicating a lot actually, and finally he given me the code. So I thought let me just have a look here, and I find the code quite interesting. The question actually quite interesting. So I have created a PowerPoint also. I want to show you the PowerPoint. Okay. Well, this is the PowerPoint I have created. Of course, it's just a dummy PowerPoint, and it talks about the Camtasia, something like that. But there are 50 slides as you can see here. Okay, and this is available by the name of guide.ppt, and this is actually on my desktop. Okay, on my desktop. Now, what we want to do is after every fifth slide, as I said, you see here that after fifth, there is a sixth slide, right? But now we want to insert a blank slide here. And then after the 10th slide, there has to be a blank slide, and then so on. Okay. So see guys, based on the information, the knowledge we have got so far, we already know that how we can go and define the PowerPoint application first of all. So let's quickly go and say PPT as PowerPoint dot application, because I want to use the PowerPoint. And as I said that I'm going to use the early binding method. Okay, early binding approach where we are directly referring to these objects. And this is possible only because we have activated the library in the tool reference. Otherwise, you won't be able to use this, right? So I'll talk about the how to convert this into late binding, and I also tell you the difference. Why do you want to convert it and why do you not want to convert it? First, let's see this. Okay. Now you see generally now what happens basically if I have to create a new PPT, I can use this new PowerPoint application and we can say that, okay, so I want to make my this PPT visible in this way, right? Now the thing is, here we have already got the PPT. I mean to say PowerPoint. So I just want to actually open that PPT first. So we will simply say that the presentation as PowerPoint dot presentation. Okay. Now, generally, if it is a new PPT, we always say that PPT and then presentation and dot add, right? But this will create a new PPT and we don't want that, right? So what we have to do is we have to change the code. Okay, we have to change this code. Now how? So what I'm supposed to actually do in this case is on the PPT, on the presentations, I'm going to use actually the open method, right? And here we will give the path. Fine. So this is where I have kept that PPT. You can see here. Let me quickly go and check the properties of this. And this is what I want to do. I copy this and let's just go back to the VBA code. And here we will write that particular path. Now, what this is going to do is this is basically going to connect you. VBA will connect this presentation, the existing PPT. So this is a big difference. Okay. Now, once the presentation comes, then what you are supposed to do, then we will say that, okay, so let's create the loop here, actually 1 to 50, because you see, I have 50 slides here. Okay. I have 50 slides here. So I have to run this 50 times. Now, there can be numerous ways of doing it. I don't know. I mean, but what I thought is that because you have to go after every fifth slide, fifth instance, right? So there is a simple rule that if I becomes 5 and if I divide that 5 with 5 and if the remainder is going to be 0, that means that's exactly what I want. That is the slide which I want to target, right? Because there is no other number which if you divide it with 5 is going to give you the remainder as 0, right? So for example, 5 is a 1, 10 is a 1, then 15 is a 1, then 20 is a 1. So what is happening? We will simply going to check in VBA that I, if I divide this I, okay, with 5, with 5, and if that is going to be 0, then definitely it means that's exactly the slide I want to target because that's going to be the fifth instance. Make sense or not, right? So this is where the mod function plays very important role and you use this function in Excel also. Okay, so this is how we write it. Okay, so actually it is not a function here, just for your knowledge, because functions are written in a different way. Like for example, if you have to use a function called left, then you start the function and you write the parameters. This is actually your operator. Mod is your operator. Okay, anyways, I hope the logic is clear. Now see, when you have got that particular the I, right, for the very first time it's going to be 5. So at that point in time we will go and say that, okay, now we want to actually go and work with the slide. So we're going to use the PowerPoint slide. Okay, obviously I'll keep this line separate. You don't have to redefine and define this again and again. We will keep this slide here. Okay, so here my slide is going to be it's going to be connected with my what, with my presentation. Okay, so what we will do is we will say that, okay, so we are going to add actually the slides. Okay, add, you will use the add method, you will not use the add slide. Please remember that add method doesn't show up in the VBA, and as I said before also, this seems like an error, but they never actually worked on it. But anyways, you just have to write here the index. Now suppose you say that, okay, so we got 5, the fifth slide, so I want to now add a sixth slide, so you can write here 6. But then what about the next time when I is going to be 10? Then you want this to be dynamic, so we will say I plus 1 actually. Very simple, right? And then in the layout I can choose this blank or whatever, that's up to you. Okay, so this is how the slide is going to be created. And in case if the remainder of I is not going to be 0, then obviously we will simply go and put here end if. Okay, well, you can write else end if, but I leave this as it is because if I don't have to do anything in the else, I can leave it blank. Make sense, guys, or not? Is this, I hope this is clear. This is very simple, right? But you see how the logic actually is working. So the very first thing which I want to actually do is I want to quickly run this, and we want to open a PPT here. Let me run this and let's see that if we are able to do this or not. So there we go. Yeah, so you see that this PPT is right now open. Okay, let me go back to the VB code. Yeah, so the code is waiting here. Let me just create this, resize this code. Now, when the I is going to be 1, 2, and 3, and 4, it's not going to get inside the then code. So I'm just going to put the, this breakpoint here. So let's quickly run this. Now we have run this, and now you can see I is 5. So 5 divided by 5, the remainder is 0. So this is what now we are going to do. Now pay attention here. You know that here after the fifth slide, there is a sixth slide, and this is already existing slide, right? So yeah, look at this, fifth and the sixth. So if I go back to my VB and I run this, what it should do, it should actually make 5 plus 1, and it should add a new slide, right? This is what we are targeting. Look at this. Wow, beautiful. Now this is the sixth one. Again, then you will run the code. The next time 10 divided by 5 will give you the result, right? So now you can see I have got the 10. So 10 plus 1, which means 11th slide is going to be added. Let me run this, and now let me scroll down and show you. Let's see the 11th one. Look at this, right? So this process now has to be repeated. Okay, so before the end sub now here, let me first of all run this quickly. So let me remove this, basically. Let me quickly run this. See this, the code has run. Now I want to quickly show you. So are we good with this? See, the sixth slide is blank, 11th is blank, 16 is blank, 21 is blank, 26 is blank, 31st is blank, and so on. So now you can see here that the last one was after the 50th, which is 51. Okay, so before we now say that goodbye to this code, we just have to insert one more slide. And that is not like systematically it has to be inserted. It is just that you want to insert the first slide, I mean, a new slide before the first slide. So that you can do manually. I mean, okay, uh, there's nothing to, like, you don't have to create any loop. So you just go and pick this slide, copy this code, and once the loop is done, just say that, you want to add a slide. And the slide number is obviously going to be the first one. So now when I run this code, if I run this code, you can see here that the first slide is created. Okay, so this is how basically you can go and do this powerful powerful and very, I say that this helps you in understanding, I hope now, the more about the how you can control these PowerPoint objects using the VBA. So now the last thing, as I said, that we will now convert this code into a late binding. So this is basically your late binding. Just to save the time, I actually have commented all the lines, and I have reproduced those lines. But how I have written it, let me explain this. It's very easy. See, all the dim statements and the set statements, basically, they are supposed to be changed. Okay. So for example, let me just do one thing here. Actually, let me first of all, I'm sorry for this. Yeah. You see, this was your original code. So now the PPT is not going to be PowerPoint application. It is going to be what? It is going to be simply an object. Okay, first of all, only object. Why? Let me tell you. First of all, object. Okay, set PPT. When you said it has to be a new PowerPoint application, you use the create object method and you write the application. If it is a Word, MS Word, Word dot application, Outlook dot application, like this. Okay, so this is how you write it. Basically, what happens? What is the difference between these two lines and these two lines? See, the thing is that when you use the early binding, the other person should have the same version. If you are sharing this code with somebody, and if they don't have this 16.0 library, it depends which version he or she is using. Maybe they are using, let's say, Excel 2030 and the PowerPoint also 2013, then this version will change. Okay, so in that case, what exactly happens is that the code is not going to run on their system because code is not compatible. So basically, if 16.0 is there, somebody is using the same version or somebody is using the lesser version, then it is fine. The code will automatically detect the library and the code will work. Lower version will work. But what if some audience is using the higher version, or maybe you have created this in 2010 and you are sending it to me and I'm using 2016, or maybe I'm using some Office 365, let's say, right? I'm using the higher version. In that case, you'll get here the missing error because this library is not going to be available on my machine. So the workaround on this is that I have to deselect this and I have to select my own library, PowerPoint. From lower to higher version, the problem comes. If my user is using the same version or the lower version, then there is no challenge. So you have to decide now. Okay, now let's say half of the audience is using higher version, half of the audience is using the lower version, and people are not cool about this that they have to deselect this and they have to go and check their own library. Maybe they are not technically so sound, or maybe they don't want to do it, or maybe you think that as a programmer you should give them a code which should work on every version. Yes, every version. Okay, so in that case, what is going to happen? Early binding concept then will be replaced by the late binding concept, as I said. In the late binding, what you do, you said you don't know about the version, so you simply say that I want to create an object can be anything, and then you say that okay, it has to be a PowerPoint application. Now if I send you this code, it doesn't matter which version you are using, my VBA will automatically pick your VBA will automatically pick which PowerPoint you are using. If you don't have a PowerPoint installed, obviously nobody can help, then you have to install. Okay, so every line you have to create, wherever you have written the dim statement, it has to be object. Like for example, see, the presentation is also an object now, and this line remains the same. Okay, your P slide also, I have created this as an object. Rest everything, every code remains the same. Okay, so if now I run this code, if I run this code, and now you don't need the reference, remember, because now this is actually going to create the object automatically, right? If you have a PowerPoint installed, so you don't have to use this. And also you have to go and change this to 1 because PPT layout blank has an index called 1. How do I know about it and why I'm doing it? How I know it? Well, you just have to Google it because it's a so I'm using I was using the blank layout. It has an index called 1, right? If you're using some other, because there were other options also, right? You have to change the number accordingly. Now, I have to do that? Because if I run the code by saying PPT layout blank, then this will give me an error because I'm now using actually the late binding. So couple of things you have to take care. Otherwise, it's very easy. So now if I run this code, we should be able to see 61 slides. As simple as that. See, the code has run. Remember, the tool reference is not activated. There was no library. So this actually created the PowerPoint application based on my version. So it means now, first of all, let's see that what exactly we have got. So let me go to my PowerPoint. So look at this. So the first is created and then all the way go down and see we have got the 61 slides. Okay, so this means that our code is working. That's great. Okay, so this is the difference between the late binding and the early binding. Now, the why I did not use the late binding in the very first instance, well, because you see, I am not that smart. It's not possible for me to simply remember the classes and using the dot operator. For example, you want to define this presentation. So you will go and write here object, that's fine. But now the next time you have to go and remember the syntax. See, the dot doesn't work here. And when we work with the classes, we access their properties and the methods using the dot operator. You know that, right? So even if let's say, for a moment, let's say I know the classes, I know class, and of course I know that which method or property I have to use. Still, I'm so much used to these dot operators, that intelligence, that I always like to use it, right? So if I press the presentation, if it is a early binding, it allows me to actually go and show the classes or the methods or its properties, And so that kind of gives me the clarity that yes, I'm on the right path. So I'm never actually comfortable with this. And if you ask the developers, VBA developers, most of them, 90% of them will say, in my opinion, that first create the code in the early binding so that you can access the properties and the methods of a class, and then you can just go and convert that to a late binding. Okay, they also say that early binding is bit slower than the late binding. Early binding is bit faster actually than late binding, because in the late binding you have to create an object. In the early binding it is already available when you actually go and say this, so but I think it speed matters when you're actually writing a very very big code. Otherwise it's fine, it doesn't take even a seconds to do these type of jobs. Okay, so for me, early binding is the first choice. Okay. But yes, if I know my audience is using the different Office versions to make the code compatible so that they don't have to deactivate the missing reference and then add their own, I will convert that to a this the late binding. Okay. So I prefer with the early. But as I said that if my audience is using the same version which I'm on the lower version, then yes, I need not to convert all this into a late binding. I need not to convert them into an object. So both the options are available with you. You decide what you want to do. Okay, fine. Thank you so much.